All right. Hey, good morning, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Saturday, September 17th, 2022. This is your morning tropical update. Across the Atlantic Basin today, we are still tracking Tropical Storm Fiona as your main player. That will be the main focus of this morning's video. We can see Fiona here just now getting into the far eastern Caribbean. Maximum sustained winds are about 60 miles an hour today on Fiona, and she is tracking towards the islands of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, where heavy impacts are expected through the weekend and into early next week. Otherwise, the Atlantic Basin is pretty quiet this morning. We do have one little kind of tropical something or other moving around in the Central Basin, but it is moving north and away from any interest for the U.S. And a little wave out by Bermuda never really got going, no longer expected to develop. So the basin, other than Fiona, is pretty quiet and exceptionally quiet for mid-September. Good news overall. I think we'll have something behind Fiona to track in the coming days, but right now, not a big concern and not on the NHC's radar. So Fiona, the main player here this morning. National Hurricane Center 11 a.m. advisory. Maximum sustained winds are up to 60 miles an hour. The movement has slowed down on Fiona today. She's moving to the west at about 8 miles an hour. The storm has slowed considerably over the last 24 to 36 hours. As we talked about last night, we were expecting the potential for hurricane watches and warnings, and we do have them this morning. You can see Puerto Rico in red there, highlighted with hurricane warnings. Hurricane watches are up for some of the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, as well as the east coast of the Dominican Republic. Fiona is expected to be stronger than we thought yesterday. The newest advisories do take this to hurricane intensity as she approaches Puerto Rico on Sunday afternoon. This is a cool current summary of the watches and warnings in effect with Fiona. I am not going to try to read all these off to you. I can't pronounce half of these anyway. So you can go to the National Hurricane Center's website under Public Advisory if you want the latest on who's under what exact watch or warning. Again, hurricane watch means that conditions are hurricane conditions, winds over 75 miles an hour are possible within 48 hours. A hurricane warning means that those winds are likely within 36 hours or expected within 36 hours. So otherwise, forecasts for Fiona have not dramatically changed. The Hurricane Center's track is still pretty much what we were expecting yesterday. The big changes lie in the structure of Fiona. So this is the satellite presentation this morning, and she does look a lot better than she did yesterday. If you remember, the last about 2 days, we've had this low-level center out running ahead from where all the thunderstorm activity was that was shunted well off to the east by a high amount of wind shear. Well, as we talked about yesterday's morning video, we were expecting that wind shear to decrease, and it has today. We can see that that upper cirrus outflow looks a lot better, and the storm overall, you can't see the low-level circulation anymore because it is surrounded by thunderstorms and high clouds, indicating that Fiona is organizing better. Now, it does not look as organized as it really is, or it looks better than it really is the best way to say this morning. The hurricane hunters and some microwave satellite imagery tell us that Fiona isn't as great as she might look right now, but we have indications that it is organizing and could be ready to develop more and become a hurricane. That's why the hurricane watches and warnings have gone up for the island. So the lesser forward speed has helped Fiona catch up the low and mid levels some, and the wind shear has decreased. This is a wind shear map. Current analysis, Fiona is right here on your map. This is Cuba, this is Hispaniola, this is Florida, to kind of orient yourself real quick. And you can see this trough here and the streamlines is starting to lift more north of Fiona, and the overall shear is decreasing around the storm. You can see more yellows and greens near Fiona center, indicating that the wind shear is not as strong, and instead of being out of the due west, it's more out of the west, southwest kind of motion, or south-southwest, and that is a more favorable vector of the shear, if you will. And the water vapor imagery seems to confirm this as well. The upper trough over the Caribbean is beginning to lift more northward, and it's beginning to retrograde. So this trough is kind of weakening as it backs away, and as this leans backwards, it kind of opens up more room for Fiona to breathe, and you can see those cirrus clouds shooting off in every direction, indicating that it has better outflow, it's breathing better, and organizing as a result. Now, the microwave imagery tells us that the underhood look is not as good as it may have been before. We have a curved band moving in on the southwest, and you got this big burst of convection on the east side. The mid-level and low-level circulation centers are probably tucking back to the east and up under there today. So computer models think Fiona's more up here, where in reality she's probably more down here. Hurricane hunters are finding that as well. So there's some issue with the storm moving around and reorganizing, and that's why we tell you guys, with these weaker storms, they like to move their centers around when they're finding themselves per se. So don't trust these model runs too much, and don't get too caught up in the early forecast tracks because the entire center of the storm can shift and move around by itself, and that's what Fiona is doing today. So as we look into the next about 12 to 24 hours, the impacts are going to be for Puerto Rico and Hispaniola. There is a considerable chance that Fiona will be a hurricane on approach because the storm is becoming better organized. You have that thunderstorm activity consolidating around the center, and I would give this most of the day today. It's going to take some time for this to figure out what it's doing and get its center set and everything. But once it does that, it's over pretty warm water and it's over pretty light wind shear. That's going to give Fiona a chance to not only intensify, but I think your rapid intensification, like the Hurricane Center notes, is possible. We could see this get in well to Category 1 hurricane intensity, and even the Hurricane Center's current forecast of about 75 to 80 miles an hour as it's near Puerto Rico could be a bit low, and they even mentioned they may have to click that up more. So if you're in Puerto Rico or the eastern coast of the Dominican Republic, you need to not only expect a hurricane, but expect a pretty significant Category 1 or Category 2 hurricane is what I would be expecting. Again, that's just my opinion. That's not anybody else's. But that's just something I would keep an eye on, as well as Fiona looks like she's about to go into an intensification phase tonight into tomorrow as she approaches the islands. So the question, of course, for a lot of people watching this is, well, where the hell is Fiona going from there? I don't live in Puerto Rico. I don't care. Okay, right. The future does look better. The overall ensembles and the model trends have moved more towards an eastern hook away from the East Coast and out to sea. Now, that confidence has increased because Fiona is moving slower and Fiona is stronger than expected. Remember, we talked about yesterday, if she's weaker and further west, she wants to drift further west. The interaction with Hispaniola is still important, but it looks like the bulk of guidance tells us that she's going to move north of Hispaniola. That's why it looks better. The storm being stronger, again, if you come up from the south of Hispaniola and it puts the strongest winds right into those mountains, it really disrupts the storm, and a weaker Fiona is more likely to drift off to the west. A stronger Fiona that takes a more northerly path north of the islands is more likely to keep itself together, and the stronger storm feels more of the influence from the system trying to pull Fiona away from the coast and back out to sea, and therefore you see that the brighter colors indicate that the stronger storm stays more east, the weaker storm in the blues and greens stays more west. And that's kind of the thing we're still watching. Now, if something changes and she, winds up lurching further west than we expected, or picks up speed or something, that could change. But the confidence that she's going to hook out and away from land has increased today. It's not 100%, but it is better than it was. This is both in the GFS and Euro ensembles. Also on our morning statistical dynamical models, all showing that the chances of this moving through the Mona Passage, and again, if she moves between the two islands, that's even better for her to stay strong. It's not good news for Puerto Rico or Hispaniola, but it is good news that she'll move through and then remain strong, which gives her a better chance to feel the upper steering flow trying to pull her out. This is GFS and Euro's depiction of that. You can see here on early Tuesday, the storm has lifted north of the islands. She's following a break between these two high pressure cells, one over the eastern U.S., one over the central Atlantic, and there's a break between here, and there's this trough digging in from the New England region that is trying to pull her up and out to sea. GFS shows her being picked up by that trough. The high pressures stay weak enough where one edge is here, one edge is here. She follows between them. The trough picks her up and carries her out to sea, pulls her away from the eastern U.S., no big deal. The European sees a little bit different solution. The Euro is slower and weaker with the storm. It tracks it closer to Hispaniola, and as a result, notice how on the Euro by Wednesday it's drifted more into the southern Bahamas, and the trough that picked up Fiona on the GFS, it runs away and leaves Fiona kind of sitting here between these same two high pressure cells. This solution is kind of what we're talking about for the potential outliers here. This gets a little bit closer to the Bahamas, but then on the Euro, another trough swings down by the middle of next week and then pulls her out to sea. So again, there are still worlds where this could change a little bit if she moves too slow in this phase and drifts too close to the Bahamas and then tries to recurve. There are worlds where this could still get closer to the eastern U.S., and I don't want y'all to think, oh, well, we're great, it's fine, don't worry about it, who cares? It's too early to say that, but again, most of the solutions, given Fiona behaving, takes her out to sea, and we don't have to worry about it. So stay vigilant, but there's no reason to panic or worry or run for the hills by any stretch right now. So that's kind of the latest for the eastern U.S. as far as her time after the islands. Again, going to be a big impact on the islands themselves. And then when she moves north, most solutions take her out to sea, but we still have to watch and make sure nothing changes. That's kind of the latest on Fiona overall. I also want to go over to the Joint Typhoon Warning Center this morning, where Super Typhoon Nanmadol is approaching Japan. I incorrectly said on the page yesterday this is a Category 5. I since deleted the post because it wasn't a Category 5. My terrible napkin math from knots to miles per hour, I just completely potatoed the calculation. Nanmadol did not achieve Category 5 status. It remains a Category 4 by current analysis, and Manure is the only Category 5 we've had this year globally, so Nanmadol does not appear it'll be joining that. It is forecast to weaken as it approaches Japan, but it's still going to be a pretty powerful typhoon as it moves into southern Japan and sort of bisects the mainland over the next couple of days. A lot of impacts from that to come for Japan, and also the Hurricane Center is also tracking the landfall of Tropical Storm Lester in the eastern Pacific. Not really a big deal. Maximum sustained winds only 40 miles an hour, but tropical storm warnings up for the coast of Mexico and some heavy rain likely from that. And we have another system that is likely to develop off the coast as that moves away. So there's still some other stuff going on in the tropics, but that's kind of the latest there. So that's what I got for you guys this morning on your topical update. Again, Fiona expected to bring hurricane conditions to Puerto Rico and Hispaniola over the next couple of days. Going to be a pretty significant impact there. The flooding risk in Puerto Rico is exceptionally high, and we definitely want to keep an eye on that. But that will eventually move away to the north, and then it looks like most solutions still take Fiona out to sea, but we will have to watch on the U.S. East Coast. That's anyone from Florida to the Carolinas to New England to make sure she behaves and goes off like she's supposed to. So what I got for you guys this morning on your topical update. As always, thanks for watching. Have a good one.